he was, as many young Indian people had gone to India, being very intelligent. He took one book, which was, I believe, first canto of the Bhagavatam. If one ever happens to receive or obtain the first canto of the Bhagavatam, and even is even a little bit remotely uh, curious or inquisitive, then one will immensely benefit. So, anyways, he took this book and went to his apartment. Then he opened the page of the Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, um, and he was mentioning how, my God, well, before reading, Bhagavatam is a big book. It's a book of philosophy. So before reading the first verse, he read the introduction, which is usually a good thing to do. You read the introduction. So the introduction in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada has put the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He'd never heard of Lord Chaitanya. Like so many Indian people, Lord, somebody may have some vague understanding, but some people never heard. So he found that interesting, and then when he finally came to the first verse, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the Janmadhyasya verse, he was uh, he was practically shocked. He was like, uh, what's the expression? Um, Dumbfounded. Dumbfounded. I mean, he to him, reading this first line, this first verse, the very first verse of the first canto, and there are 12 cantos, and then 18,000 verses, right? But he, because there's so much, the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness is deeply embedded in this first verse of the Bhagavatam. So he became immediately more than impressed. He became convinced that, my God, this is the real thing. This is real knowledge. And so I believe the following week, he went back to the temple and he met that same devotee and he told him, "Do you have any more books like this?" He had read, I believe, possibly the whole first canto. And naturally, he'd noticed that, well, this is first of many cantos. Um, so, so then he got other books. Eventually, got all of the books, and eventually, obviously, naturally, he became a devotee. Uh, so, uh, my personal experience also is that before I visited for the first time a temple, I'd never heard. I knew about Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is fairly well known, much more so than Bhagavatam. But maybe India is different. But in the Western world, uh, those who are fortunate have heard about Bhagavad Gita. Those who are very fortunate have heard about Bhagavatam. But it's very rare. I never heard about Bhagavatam. And the first Sunday feast, mm, uh, the devotee who was giving the lecture, I remember vividly, he quoted this, uh, what he referred to as the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, Tato Brahma Jigyasa. I said, wow. Just a short verse, but with such a deep meaning. And then he made reference to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And, 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita is already a good number of verses, especially when you don't know Sanskrit or don't know at all the philosophy. And then, after 700 verses, you're hit with 18,000 verses, right? The Srimad-Bhagavatam. So, just like this devotee, mm, uh, who recently broke his own world record by distributing sets of Bhagavatam. You've heard about that maybe or not. There's one devotee in America who's from India, who is into book distribution. It's like, um, there's a kind of a fever, um, because to actually be a very effective book distributor, one really has to get into a particular, I would say, mindset, particular mood, particular mentality. You have to become, like the expression in a Western country, fired up. Like sometimes we chant really good japa, and other times it's like mediocre, and sometimes other times, maybe most of the time, it's like not good at all. So, anyways, this devotee has been doing books for many years, and he naturally, as any devotee, whatever we do, we want to do better. We want to increase the quality and the quantity. So a few years ago, I think maybe 1 or 2 years back, he decided, okay, I'll try to distribute a lot of books, and he set a world record 2 years back, and I should learn what that record is because it's like phenomenal. The number of books that one individual personally can distribute. So then, more recently, just a few months ago, he decided that I should break that record. So he set his mind to break the record. So, anyways, the point I was wanting to make is that uh, the last time he was, so to break his record, he understood that the best way is to distribute sets of books, sets of Srimad-Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam is like giving us the highest knowledge uh, of transcendence. And any sincere soul who comes in contact will be changed. His life will be changed. His heart will be transformed. His consciousness will be purified. So he was telling how to some of the people to whom he was distributing these sets of books, one or two people he was telling, they could understand that they were coming in contact with what we refer to and what factually is also a treasure house of knowledge, Srimad Bhagavatam, you know. And this treasure house of knowledge is like my father used to work in a gold mine besides being a cook. And people who work in gold mines, well, you work in a gold mine because there's gold in the gold mine. And workers sometimes try to take out some of the gold also. But it means that that comparison we can use to help us understand how Vedic literatures, beginning with the Srimad Bhagavatam, is full of gems and jewels of instructions in the form of instructions that, especially when they are commented upon by acharyas like His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, who give further, embellishment or further insights into the content of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was telling how there was a couple of people, because they kind of like, when someone is very enlivened and somebody comes in contact with that person, very often that person also becomes enlivened. So a few of the people who took, they naturally they took the set of books because, like, maybe it's $100 or more. You have to, one book normally is like $5 or $10. So if you have like 20 books, it's like 100 or more. I mean, to give that amount of money is I mean, it's quite substantial. But they were so, one person like took 3 sets, for example, because he felt that, hey, I have to share this, I have to give this with my friends or whatever. So two of the people who actually received these books, they were actually literally in tears, because they were able to get a glimpse, the beginning of a glimpse of how valuable these books are, and this is what is being referred to here in terms of Vedic knowledge. When one immerses oneself, when one, as we are meant to do on a regular basis, hears from the Bhagavatam and develops this this understanding which is being explained here, that the more we cultivate this knowledge, we will not become bewildered by whatever may be happening in the material world, because we will become more and more firmly established in the knowledge of the Bhagavatam, and the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, whenever calamities will happen, it's not that we won't be completely unaffected, but we will, depending on our, on our level of consciousness, our level of understanding, we'll be able to cope with such situations, to the point actually of becoming a totally, what is called dhira, totally sober-minded, even at what is considered the most difficult situation for all conditioned souls in the material world, losing a close relative, uh, and of course, losing our own body. It means facing the moment of death. So, so this point is being brought out here by Narada Muni, that yeah, it's a basic principle that when we are situated in knowledge, then uh, mm, knowledge drives away, obviously, ignorance, and drives away suffering. The cause of suffering is ignorance. Uh, so, Prabhupada would also say how in presenting this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, I, as an individual, I may be imperfect, but if I simply present the knowledge as I receive it in Guru Parampara, then this knowledge becomes perfect, and therefore anyone who receives this knowledge can get the full benefit. So the point, of course, in the purport being referred to here is the importance of Guru or Acharya, and that's a very um, just like if we look at Christianity, um, this principle is not actually there, and therefore over the centuries, the philosophy, the basic philosophy, some aspects of that philosophy have changed. So that is a very important, essential feature, of course, of Vedic knowledge, is that it is transmitted in Guru Parampara, in disciplic succession. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita, makes reference to Bhagavad Gita and the importance of uh, the spiritual master. So we'll continue to go on to the next verse, which you can all repeat also. Adavante jananam sad
Adavante jananam sad
bahir anta paravaram
bahirantah paravaram
gnanam agneyam vacho vachyam
jnanam gneyam vacho vacyam
tamo jostis tvayam swayam.
tamo jyotis tvayam swayam.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. He who exists internally and externally at the beginning and end of everything and of all living beings as that which is enjoyable and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the supreme truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus he, the Supreme Lord, is everything. It's his philosophy. Purport. Here the Vedic aphorism, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, is explained. It is also explained in the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, Aham Evasam Evagre. The Supreme Lord existed in the beginning. He exists after the creation and maintains everything. And after destruction, everything merges in him, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Prakritim Yanti Mamikam. Thus, the Supreme Lord is actually everything. in the conditioned state, we are bewildered in our understanding, but in the perfect stage of liberation, we can understand that Krishna is the cause of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna
Swara Parama Krishna
Satchit Ananda Vigraha
Satchidananda Vigraha
Anadir Adir Govinda
Anadiradir Govinda
Sarvakaranam Karanam.
Sarvakarana Karanam.
Translation from 5. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. Therefore, he is the prime cause of all causes. Yeah. So this is also, this is the perfection of knowledge. Prabhupada ends in this way. This is the perfection of knowledge. So the Brahma Samhita is another source of important knowledge. Brahma Samhita was, as we know, was found by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when visiting South India. It's amazing how, Brahma Samhita, when was Brahma Samhita spoken? Creation. That's a long time ago. Because Lord Brahma is like, we understand. How old is Lord Brahma? Huh? No, how old is he? It's like, how old are you? How old, So Lord Brahma, according to those who can calculate, Lord Brahma just, I guess, supposed to take Vanaprastha. He's 50 years old. I mean,
In his lifespan.
So he just turned 50.
In his lifespan.
Yeah.
In his years, in our years.
Yeah, in his life, right. Lord Brahma is 50. So it means that, his one day is so many millions of years in our calculation. The point I wanted to make is that it's like in our calculation, the amount of time, the amount of years, when Lord Brahma composed the Brahma Samhita, is like, that's why I think in one section of the Brahma Samhita, I think maybe the concluding section, it mentions how this book was found in South India when Lord Chaitanya went there, and how the book was, what's the expression, that was lost to antiquity or something, which is, and that's why only one portion, I think a few verses of one of the chapters, I think there were 100 chapters possibly, but even that small portion is extremely powerful, potent, and revealing, reconfirming. Because actually, sometimes people, they will say, just like now in Indonesia, there's a big controversy. He knows about in Bali, because the priests in Bali, the Brahmanas in Bali, they are claiming that Hare Krishna is not bona fide. Hare Krishna is not bona fide because
There are Brahmanas in Bali.
yeah. They have their own Bhagavatam also. Bhagavatam. Huh?
Bhagavad Gita.
No, Bhagavatam also. Yeah. maybe you're not from Brahmana background, but there is also, yeah. Naturally, yeah. But their claim is that actually in the Vedas, Krishna's name is not there.
Vedas, half of the demigods' name is Sarvata. Only Indra, Agni, they are mentioned.
So that is why they have yet to come in contact, the Brahmanas in Bali, with the teachings of Srila Jiva Goswami, who in his Tattva Sandarbha, his first of the 6 Sandarbhas, establishes that actually um, it is not practical nor is it possible for us to really properly know or understand the Vedas, the original Vedas, because they're written in a very, there's different levels of Sanskrit, right? Sholti Vasa, and then there is the...
I don't know what I have not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly the point. that practically speaking, no one is qualified. No one knows Sanskrit. No one knows that high level Sanskrit.
Madhvacharya has written Bhashya.
Huh?
Madhvacharya has written Bhashya on Rig Veda Bhashya.
Okay, yeah.
Commentary.
So the point being that Srila Jiva Goswami was making the point that because there are corollaries, there are extensions of the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas. So they are, and he found verses supporting this statement also, that they are also Vedic, that is also Vedic knowledge. And therefore it is, this is more accessible and for us in Kali Yuga, this knowledge presented in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, given by the literary incarnation of Godhead, Srila Vyasadeva, is more important. Not only he says more important, but actually has more information than the original Vedas. And therefore, this is unknown, again, to the Brahmanas in Bali, and therefore they are making this claim that Hare Krishna is not, doesn't fit in to to our understanding, our definition of what is Hinduism.
Actually, we are coming from Madhva, and so Madhvacharya established it very strongly that it is.
Yes, but those who are, I mean, the whole tradition, they have a very strong tradition in Bali. There's a whole, I'm less familiar with the whole details, but about 1,000 years ago, I mean, there used to be a direct link. There used to be from Jagannath Puri. They have a link with Jagannath Puri. You know, they used to, Brahmanas from India used to go from Jagannath Puri sailing to Bali. There's a whole history. But of course, as we know in Kali Yuga, things become broken and distorted. And so they lost, like so many countries who were closely, like most of the, what we call uh, East Asian countries.
All Chola,
Huh?
the Chola kings.
Yeah, it's like lost civilizations. I mean, the whole Cambodia, the kingdom of Cambodia with Angkor Wat. This is like truly amazing. It's like the Vedic culture. The Vedic Angkor Wat is the Vishnu largest Vishnu temple in the world, in the whole. It's like all Vedic architecture based on Vastu Shastra. So, so that's what that is. Yes, the point is, this is what happens when we disconnect, when we break away from, um, as we all have done. Actually, we have all the conditioned souls in the material world have, since time immemorial, practically, we cannot trace it back, broken our connection with Krishna ultimately, and therefore we find ourselves where we find ourselves in a distressful condition without very much understanding of what is taking place. So therefore, the importance of the Vedic knowledge and the importance of cultivating true bona fide acharyas, and so this is we could say a bone of contention um, that is presenting all kinds of problems in the specific context of Bali, for example, and for that matter, for anyone in any country in the world, including India, because it's not, although it is mentioned very clearly in the Shastras that to be born in India is a very special birth. It is not ordinary birth. Um, but it is not that simply because one is born in India that he is automatically Krishna conscious. Yeah. Or same argument being born in a Brahmana family that one is a Brahmana, correct? um, Therefore, the importance of coming in contact with this knowledge as presented by personalities like Srila Prabhupada. Let me see here. Yeah, the other purport is too long, so we won't read that. Any further comments or questions on this? I'm sure he would have different questions if the language barrier was not.
Use Google Translate to record
Chalu.
I'm thinking to figure something out. Maybe if the recording is there, I can transcribe it automatically.
Well, they do that at the United Nations, right? But we have to become like mini United Nations.
No, we can do that. That is very easy.
Yeah.
In the captions, I have to turn it for Indonesia, Bahasa.
Okay. Because one big advantage, it's like it's like here in India, although Sanskrit is like the mother tongue, mother language, but the national language is Hindi. So Indonesia is similar. Practically every province, they have their own language. Like in Bali, they have Bali Vasa. What's his name? Vasa Bali, yeah. Then in where Jakarta is, on the other island, the island of Java, they have Javanese language. And in another province where we'll go and visit our small village, Gitanagari Baru, there they have a different language, Lampung. It's a province of Lampung. But the point I wanted to make is that in like Javanese language, 80% of that language is Sanskrit today. And I don't know about Bali Vasa. What percentage is Sanskrit? Sanskrit. He doesn't understand the question. So, what percentage of the Balinese language compared to the Javanese language? Javanese language I heard 80% is Sanskrit. So therefore, it means that it's easier for somebody from Indonesia with that kind of background to pick up Indian languages, in particular Sanskrit language. And that's why one of the reasons why Sanskrit is important to learn, and you should take courses on Sanskrit. I told you already. Yeah, one can take online courses.
I'm studying under
Yeah, right. You have it. I was going to say, but to have a live teacher is better. Yeah, correct.
spoke with him yesterday also.
Okay. So if we all learn Sanskrit, so many problems will be solved. Actually. Um, so um, yeah, that would be nice if some kind of simultaneous translation could be there. That would be interesting. Well, I mean, they have it now in writing, right? If you
no,
write.
this issue is Guru Maharaj. This is streaming live. So
Oh, I see. Okay.
otherwise I can
Okay.
enable some
Right.
translation.
Yeah. Okay. So for him, because of the language barrier, he cannot ask too many questions. Yeah. In any event, especially because we spoke about the situation in Bali, which is still unresolved. Okay. Any further? Yeah. So we can close for now.
No, this Pitrayana Devayana is Pitri is our ancestors.
Yeah.
So Devayana means like
Devas.
demigods.
Yes.
Path of liberation for demigods.
Huh?
Is it path of liberation for demigods?
Part of liberation.
Path.
Path. Language. Well, here it basically mentions even though situated in the material body, one who is fully aware of the paths known as Pitri Yana and Devayana will never be bewildered. So ultimately, the path, there's only one path. It's not that the devas have a particular path, because we understand from Bhagavad Gita that those who are promoted to the heavenly planets ultimately have to come back here. The planet Earth is like the launching pad, so to speak, to get out of the material world. One is living out one's karma. So, of course, we also hear from Srila Jiva Goswami, that's very interesting also, that there is both the Mahabharata, extended Mahabharata, and extended Srimad-Bhagavatam being spoken by particular personalities. I forget now. He mentions in the Tattva Sandarbha that it's like people like Shukadeva Goswami and then Narada Muni and one more, I forget now. They are speakers of the Bhagavatam in these different places. So in other words, it's it'd be interesting to find out more, of course, about this, and I'm sure it's possible if we were not having to deal with so many things that is taking us somewhat away from these studies. But anyways, this is one area that'll be interesting to research in our Vaishnav Research Institute. How is it that, for example, if the Bhagavatam is being spoken and being heard in the heavenly planets, why would people have to come back here? Same thing with Pitri Loka. So, in other words, how does it work? So I've not studied, so I cannot say. But the fact is that, well, just like it does mention, we've heard how those living entities who, for example, maybe initially were materially motivated and end up in Brahmaloka. And if they're fortunate to have a Lord Brahma who is a pure devotee, because not all the Lord Brahmas are pure devotees. Our Lord Brahma became a pure devotee at some particular time. I mean, they're all, demigods are elevated personalities, and they're given different responsibilities, especially the more prominent demigods, but they're not pure devotees generally. But it does mention how at the end of the life of Lord Brahma, if he's a pure devotee, those who are with him, naturally, they're like his disciples, they also can be promoted to the spiritual world. Although generally speaking, from Svargaloka, or from the heavenly planets, one normally comes back to the earthly planet. So, and when you have personalities like Narada Muni, who's speaking the Bhagavatam wherever, then one would think that, well, definitely those who are hearing the Bhagavatam from the lips of Narada Muni surely can become not only purified but liberated as well. Anyways, um, the attractive feature, one of the many attractive features of Krishna consciousness is that we have a whole eternity to find out. It's like never ending, because Krishna, Prabhupada explains, we can never fully, completely uh, finish learning or knowing or understanding about Krishna, because he's unlimited. Um, even Krishna himself is uh, attracted to his own reflection, as in Dwarka. Yeah, it means that actually there is sometimes we, which is also good, we feel, um, and it is a fact that we are missing because so many things are yet to be understood or to be known. But the positive side, the good side, is that that's what Krishna consciousness is all about. That we will um, not only in this lifetime we have opportunities, but it is an eternal. It actually becomes our eternal occupation, so to speak, to more and more deeply um, understand and realize the knowledge given in the Vedic literatures. Okay, we'll close for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gauda Pimanandi, Hare Krishna.